Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making a recipe that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of because I would offend everybody in Brazil. However, I might not because I noticed today that the recipe says inspired by, so it might not even be actually Brazilian. That kind of puts a little bit of a dampener on my broader goal of why I'm making this dish today. Is I figured I'd kind of challenge myself to expand my culinary horizons by trying to go through the alphabet and making food from different countries of those letters. And obviously American, I make that all the time, so I'm just skipping that. And we'll start with B, with Brazil. And I mean, this great opportunity for you to send me suggestions of countries and ideally recipes from that country that I should make. And don't, steal any of the easy ones for me, like C. I'm gonna do Canada because it's an easy C name, but you don't really think of too many dishes being Canadian. So I'm gonna figure out something there. And then F is France, easy peasy. But the other ones, are there any countries that start with the letter X? If not, I hold the right to skip a letter and just move on to the next one. Obviously, I can't skip around and bounce back and forth, but if I hit a letter that I'm yeah, no, that ain't gonna happen, I'll just move on to the next. This isn't gonna be an every week thing. This will be kind of a periodic, similar to the Aaron's Baking Corner and the Meatless Monday. It'll be a fun little thing that we're doing. What we're making today, even though I mean, the name I'll have as the title of the video, so you can attempt to pronounce that yourself. And I just will never do that. It's gonna say prawn stew. And I don't use prawns because I couldn't find them, but I did look it up and shrimp apparently taste the same. They're not the same, but they taste the same. So I'm just gonna call it, if I do refer to this as shrimp stew or prawn stew, I might try and keep it authentic by saying prawn stew, but I'm just lying. And I figured for the shirt for today, I'm wearing a lobster one so it's seafood based. So it all fits. And also the way that I got this shirt might be slightly surprising because I got this when I was 13 or 14. I would say it still fits, but it didn't fit back then because I am about a foot taller than I was then. The way that I got this, so I was on a road trip with my mom to go to Maine to get lobster because that's what normal people do. And while we were there, I think this was we were in Maine proper. We got lobster at a few different states along the way just to, you gotta compare it. And so I think at this point we're in Maine. Well, we're in Maine because it says Maine there. I'm not the brightest tool in the tool shed. I just have lucky moments. So we're in Maine and we got to the motel or hotel wherever we were staying. And we asked the person who was working there, hey, do you have any recommendations for places to get some food? And they were well, there's a good Chinese food place down the street. And we're we were thinking more seafood, ideally lobster, because we are in Maine. And I mean, that's just one of those things where it's I guess locals are tired of it, which doesn't make any sense to me because, I'm from Maryland and I'm never tired of blue crabs. But maybe we're just built different. So they're well, there is this one place, you go down the road, you make a left, you follow that road until you cross 3 bridges and then you're there. And we're well, that sounds easy enough to follow because this is pre-smartphone era. So we were just blindly trusting this person. And so we drive down the road, we make the turn that they said, and we're on the road that they said, just stay on it until you go over 3 bridges and then you're there. So we're good to go. And then about 45 minutes later, we're are we about to be murdered? Because we're still in the woods, hadn't crossed any bridges yet. It's getting dark and we're concerned, what's happening right now. And then about at an hour, we open up because it's just all woods. So I mean, it was extra dark because of that. And then we came out into this opening. It's a beautiful sunset on the water. There's 3 tiny little quick bridges to the restaurant that's on a peninsula. But to commemorate that, because of this huge journey that we went on, my mom was well, they have a gift shop, I'll get you something from there. And they had these shirts, but all that they had was large or extra large. I have no idea what size this is because the tag's fallen off years ago. I don't know if they just, I'm assuming they had other things, but for whatever reason I was like, I want that. And it was like a tent on me back then. But I grew into it, so it works out well. And I like it, like this is like one of my favorite shirts. So I'm happy for the memories and the shirt that I got out of it. And I think I've rambled enough. Let's hop in, well, first we'll go through the ingredients and then we'll hop into cooking. Shrimp, limes, garlic, coconut oil, spring onions, onion, red peppers, chili flakes, paprika, tomatoes, coconut milk, and salt. Now usually we do the first step of kind of prep step, and this one's gonna be a little different. Obviously we're gonna do a little bit of prep because we need ingredients. We have to marinate the shrimp, and that takes an hour. So if you prep everything, it's just gonna be sitting around for a long time. So this step is gonna happen, and then like 30 minutes later, I would say is when you should probably start like the actual next step of the recipe. So we do need to like prepare the lime juice and the garlic for the full recipe, because we're only gonna use part of it in this step, and then we're gonna save the rest for later. So keep that in mind, like when you're using it for this step, don't just dump all that you have in there. This is just gonna be a portion. But we're gonna combine lime juice, garlic, salt, and then the shrimp, mix them together, and then let it chill for an hour to marinate. The shrimp are marinating. It's been about 30 minutes, and I figured the 30 minutes is all that we need to do the rest of the recipe. And so now we're on to kind of our normal first step of just prepping all the ingredients. So it's gonna be cut up the tomatoes, cut up the bell peppers, the spring onions, and the onion. The only different one that might be a little out of the ordinary is the onion. It says like half moon, which is just gonna be, you cut it in half, kind of like the normal that we do, but then just slice it almost, so it just makes a half circle. You'll see it. Now that all of the ingredients are prepared, the next step is to, in a large pan, heat the coconut oil and then add in the onion and then the spring onions. And it says large, but based on the kind of quantity of stuff and like the amount of liquid, so we just have a can of coconut milk and like 1/3 of a cup of lime juice. It doesn't seem like it would be a big thing of stew that I was kind of visioning in my head. So I'm gonna use my smaller Dutch oven, because usually the bigger one that I have is what I would consider like a large pan. But we're gonna see if I'm vastly underestimating something in this. But at the end, I'll let you know if I made the right or wrong decision here. But the term large just seems over the top, because I feel like you kind of, it's a stew, so I feel like you want depth to it, and I feel like a large pan would just make it very shallow. Maybe I'm gonna be wrong, but that's just kind of my instinct right here is telling me to do this. So the large pan is probably more of a medium pan in my opinion. So we're just gonna cook those up. It should take about 5 minutes. The next step is to add the bell peppers the chili flakes, the paprika, and then the remaining garlic. Next is to add the tomatoes, the coconut milk, a little bit of salt, and then we want to bring that all to a simmer and then let it go for 10 minutes at that. The stew is almost complete. The next step is just to take the shrimp that have been marinating now for an hour, add them to the pot along with the marinade. So it all just dump it all in there. And then also add the remaining lime juice that we've been having sit on the side. And then we just want to cook that for about 3 minutes until the shrimp are cooked all the way through. All right, you ready to see it? I'm pretty happy with this. I don't know how good, I mean, obviously you're gonna see the thumbnail, but for whatever reason, I wanna show it off right here, right now. And because I haven't made this before, we're gonna do a taste test. Obviously, I tasted one of the shrimp to make sure that it was cooked all the way, and that was pretty good already. So I have high hopes for the rest of this. It's very hot. It's not like I'm instantly burning my mouth hot, but I probably could have waited a few more minutes. This is a bit more like broth and like the other stuff. The first one was just pretty much straight shrimp. I'm assuming it's the coconut milk, but like something to it, like adds some flavor that I'm not really quite sure like what it is. It's good. I think it's like the combination of the like citrus and like from the, like the lime and the coconut milk. I think that's mixing together to make some very interesting, because it's like a citrusy, like buttery thing, which like describing it feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. And I like kind of will like point out that the pan decision that I made at the beginning was a correct one. And granted, I kind of like looked at my saucepans that I have, and the large one is about equivalent to the Dutch oven that I have there. It's because I have like 4 sizes, so it's like small, medium, large, and I guess extra large, or maybe it's like a stock pot. But in my head, it's always like that large one is like more medium. But so I guess just follow the instructions because they're accurate, and then I'm just used to using massive pans because I guess I'm used to more of a meal prep kind of meal, and this one isn't as large, obviously, because it uses a pan that's not as huge. But it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Beyond the waiting an hour, it's relatively quick, which I mean that hour is not like a active hands-on, so you know, you just kind of like throw it in there and then you go watch like an episode on Netflix, and then you come back and then finish the rest of the meal. Not a huge deal breaker there. And I will say like the chili flakes add like an interesting like layer of like spice that kind of comes in afterwards. It's not overpowering, but it's just like, hey, I'm here. So that's all. Obviously, somebody when making this recipe knew what they were doing. All the flavors seems to play together extremely well. I will say I don't have, it called for fresh coriander to kind of be put on top at the end, and I don't have any of that. So I'm not sure, like, because I know that I've used that before and that adds like an interesting like aromatic side, but I'm not really entirely sure what fresh coriander does. So that might add like a whole nother layer. They just didn't have it at the store when I was shopping. But I'm trying to think of like we're gonna be a little bit more kind of critical than the loosey-goosey scoring I had in the past, and also I was a bit more like rigid with it back then. So I think I'm gonna do like a 4.5, because this one's really good. It's not it's not quite like hitting, I don't know what it's missing, which is why I'm giving it the 0.5, because it's like almost there. This is one that is easy to make and tasty. I'll see how it reheats, which I'm assuming it's gonna be fine because it's like a stew, like anything liquidy. I guess the shrimp might get like overdone from reheating. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll add like a comment someplace. But overall, like, not necessarily like exceeded expectations, but like, well, like it did exceed expectations, because I kind of had like, I'm like, this is gonna be good. Like the pictures look good on the recipe, but it definitely kind of took it to a level that I was not expecting. But not quite to the moon to get that 5. But there's a lot of other countries that we're gonna have to go through, and so some of them are gonna be 5s. And I don't wanna just give them out willy-nilly, so I kinda wanna be a little bit more reserved with the 5s. That needs to be something that like when I taste it, I'm like, this is amazing. And this one I would say is like great, but not quite that amazing yet. So we'll see if we can find one. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.